So today my topic deals with something at the other end of the supply chain. You all treat the origin and the mining and the faceting and the treatment or not, and the analysis of gemstones. And I take another look at the gemstone industry, and this is where all of your gemstones end up, or at least most of them end up, and that is in beautiful pieces of jewelry. There is one company here, though, that does both, who's moved downstream and has created a fantastic jewelry brand with his fantastic jewels, and that's Pavel Sokolov. He's created, Pavel, are you there? He's created Mousson Atelier, which is a very prolific and very creative jewelry brand. So we are seeing a number of companies moving downstream, and I think this is encouraging. So I start my talk actually today with a quote from Charles Darwin. "It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change." This is true, of course, in the biological world, but it's also true in the fashion and luxury world, and it's true in the jewelry world. And fashion, in 2009, when I was asked to come back and relaunch Couture International Jeweler, I said, no, that magazine has finished. So we actually rebranded a magazine called Trends and Colors, and I was trying to find a theme or find something that would differentiate the magazine. So I started looking at fashion, and from fashion it led me to Pantone, because Pantone, which is the world's authority on color, publishes a biannual report on what they consider the prominent color trends of the season, for the two seasons, the two fashion seasons. So every year it forecasts its top 10 global trends. And for many years I was the only one that looked at Pantone. Then a couple of years ago, other designers started looking at the Pantone colors too. And if you're interested in looking at what Pantone forecasts for autumn and winter of 2015-2016, go to Pantone.com. They have a very nice presentation on their website. So for spring and summer, which is what we'll talk about now, these are the colors that they recommend. And I interviewed Leatrice Eisman, who's the executive director of the Pantone Color Institute, and I asked her how they come up with these colors. Is it just random or what? She said for the fashion colors, they interview a number of fashion designers around the world because, hey, jewelry is an accessory to fashion, and they tabulate the results, and they come up with the top 10 colors, and this is how they arrive at it. Now, for the color of they also select a color of the year. This year it's Marsala, which is not the color I would have predicted, but hey, I'm not Pantone. And she said for the color of the year, they actually send a team around the world, and they look at all industries. They look at automotive, they look at plumbing, they look at home decor, they look at paint, they look at everything, including fashion and luxury. And the choice that they came up with, which everyone agreed upon, or most people agreed upon, was Marsala. So this is the color of the year. Last year, it was Royal Orchid, which was great for people who deal in amethyst jewelry. The year before that, it was Emerald. The year before that, it was Tangerine Tango. And we're seeing the Tangerine is actually back again this year. So she said, colors come in and they go, and colors are colors. So we'll go through this very briefly because I don't want to spend more than my 30 minutes, but you can also look these up online. We'll just go very briefly. The colors this year: classic blue, which is evoked, of course, by your sapphires, which is one reason we're all here. Toasted almond. Whoops. Scuba blue. From a jewelry point of view, I would have selected this as the color of the year because it evokes the beautiful Paraiba tourmalines that are so popular. Aquamarine, the name says it all. Tangerine, of course, we have many beautiful jewels, citrines, fire opals, etc. Strawberry ice, glacier gray. All right. Whoops. And Marsala, of course, and then the lucite greens. For the winter, they have slight modifications of these colors for their winter fashion colors. So we'll look very briefly at some of the jewelry designs that I've picked out using various stones that evoke these Pantone colors, just to give an idea how they can be used to accentuate or match fashion colors. First is the strawberry ice, and you can see the creativity in the fashion colors. There's no end of creativity in jewelry design. So we have the strawberry ice leading to the tangerine and all the colors in between. The scuba blues, and of course the sapphires. The minty greens, the lucite green, and the custards. And the aquamarines, I mean, aquamarine fits this category perfectly. The marsala, which was a harder choice to find jewelry that actually matched the marsala colors. But as was so eloquently expressed by Ruben, this is a really global community. Not only is the gemstone community a global community, but the jewelry community is a global community. So we have the Americas represented, and I guess Carla will be speaking on South American jewelry, especially Brazilian jewelry next. And I actually visited Brazil in 2001 and saw at firsthand the creativity of the Brazilian jewelers and have been following them ever since. Of course, North America, Asia and the Middle East and Africa, and of course the Asia Pacific region. So we are truly a global community. When I come back, I try to cover most of the major jewelry shows in the world, and when I come back, invariably someone will ask me, wow, what was the biggest trend that you saw? And my answer is invariably, the biggest trend that I saw was, in fact, that there was no big trend. The jewelry industry is so diverse that we see something for everyone. Having said that, however, there are certain design categories or design directions that I do see and that do seem to change. And most of these design directions or trends are gradual, and they happen over time, while others occur fairly rapidly and for a variety of reasons. So we'll talk first about the mega trends, and then I want to talk about some what I call minor trends, and then we'll even talk about a micro trend. So in the global design directions for mega trends, the nature-inspired category is very large. The lacy looks, these were inspired, anybody want to hazard a guess when? The airy lacy jewelry. After 2008, the economic crisis of 2008, we began to see a lot of very lacy, negative space, open work jewelry because the metal was expensive, the gems were expensive, they could get a bigger look for less. We are also seeing a lot of geometric jewelry, both in fashion and in jewelry design. Finger fashions, hooping it up. Of course, hoop earrings are a staple, but there are different minor design elements within the hoops. Skullduggery, I like to talk about the jewelry on the edge. And the winsome wristwear, tempting tassels, cufflinks and more, and then moonlight magic. The number one basic category in designer jewelry, and we're limiting this to designer jewelry because the bulk of the jewelry industry is bridal, and the bulk of the rest of it are, in fact, small diamond and small gemstone pieces. So we're talking here about designer jewelry. The flora and fauna is probably the largest single category because it is so diverse. And among the flora and fauna, the most popular forms are flowers. So we have an incredible number of creativity, and also in fashion. We're seeing a tremendous amount of floral designs in fashion. Butterflies are the second most prominent. Probably you have seen butterfly jewelry. I mean, you see it everywhere. It's really amazing. And also in fashion. Even in watches, they've taken on the butterfly motif. Animal jewelry in general is popular. When it was the year of the horse last year, we saw a proliferation of horse jewelry. Before that, we saw snakes, dragons, you name it. And generally, animal jewelry is interesting. So these are grosso modo the categories overall. And within those categories, we also see minor trends, such as different colors or rose gold. There are minor categories within these categories. And this is one of my favorites because I think A Bug's Life sort of sums up the insect jewelry. When I was in Hong Kong, I saw this piece. This is by a Japanese designer. Every single leg or arm or whatever you want to call it is articulated and it moves. He told me it took him 6 months to make it. It's really an amazing piece. This piece here is amber. I discovered that at Amberif last year. And I said, wow, when I looked at it, I said, you have done an amazing job of blending the different colors together to get the designs. He said, oh, it's one piece. I said, what? How can it be one piece? But in fact, it's a very interesting concept that he used to treat the amber with different chemicals and different time periods so that they etch it and they get the different colors of amber. So each section of the wing is one entire piece. It was really quite an amazing thing. And then, of course, we have many others. And bees are a very popular motif right now because, unfortunately, the bee population is declining, and for various reasons, mostly pesticides and loss of habitat. So a number of designers are promoting bees, and of course, spiders are always an interesting motif. The second most popular trend, as I mentioned, is the lacy look. And these trends, this can be in cuffs, necklaces, earrings, rings. It's just an overall trend. And again, it was brought on by the economic problems of 2008, and it continues today because gemstones and metals still are expensive. And geometry, I added this trend this year because I'm seeing a lot of geometric looks. This is first on my top 10 list, not only in fashions, not only in jewelry, but also in fashion. We're seeing a lot of fashion designers having very angular looks, so I call it my angular momentum category. And these are earrings, but we find cuffs, bracelets, shoes, home decor. Geometrics are a very popular trend this year. And finger fashion, again, rings have been around forever, but this is a trend also that we are seeing coming a bit from the Middle East, where multi-fingered fashion and rings that attach to bracelets have been popular for a long time. They're pretty much hitting the mainstream now. We have 2 and 3 finger rings. We have what they call knuckle or armor rings or full finger rings. Rings that cover the entire finger, rings that cover 1 or 2 fingers, rings that are one ring but then have both sides, both fingers on either side covered. So the multi-fingered rings, which I call finger fashion, are very popular. And of course, hoops. I mean, who doesn't know about hoops? That's actually a fashion staple, especially in the US. In some countries, I know hoops can be a little counterculture, especially in France. But in the US, whether it's Rihanna wearing a hoop that's 6 inches in diameter, or whether it's someone wearing a hoop that's a ½ an inch in diameter, hoops are worn from Main Street to Wall Street to the red carpet. Hoops are extremely popular. One thing that's interesting about hoops, however, is that they are no longer round. They can be octagonal, they can be geometric, they can have gemstones, they can have different designs. Hoops, again, this was a takeoff on the bee theme with the honeycomb hoops. So hoops are very important, but the trends are that they come in all different designs with all different embellishments. On the edge, it used to be that the edgy jewelry or the skull-type jewelry, and the skulls are the most important feature of this type of jewelry, used to be pretty much counterculture. Today, however, mainstream brands are making skulls and edgy jewelry of all kinds. Have a look at this bracelet made with a claw. Even watches are getting into the act. You have 3 watch companies that do it. Even eyeglasses are getting into the edgy look. And doesn't matter. Oh, shoes, the spikes. So the edgy look is edgy, but it's really part of mainstream. And wristwear. Cuffs and bracelets, of course, are very, very popular. Whether they're on the red carpet, as you can see, or on the runways, we see a lot of jewelry. We also see cuffs, for example. I mean, even mythical characters. Look at Wonder Woman and the cuffs that she used to wear. I don't know if you all are familiar with the American series Game of Thrones, but one of the stars in that wears these big arm cuffs. So it's a very popular category. And again, it comes either in the lacy look, like this, or it comes solid, it comes embellished with gems, or it can come basically with all types of solids or lacy, as I said, or it can come attached to a ring, as in this designer. Tassels this is my third year of putting tassels on the list. Tassels and fringe are basically known in India for many years, and they became mainstream about 2.5, 3 years ago in international jewelry design, and we are finding them in all types. Not only in fashion, as we can see the fringe look here, but we're seeing them in pendants, in earrings, even in shoes. So the tassels, I call them tempting tassels because tassels can come in beads, in gemstones. One good use of inferior quality gemstones is to make them into little tiny beads and put them on a pendant, and there you have a beautiful tassel. I included men's jewelry this year because it's becoming more and more popular, and not just the standard cuffling. We're finding a lot of whimsical jewelry in menswear. We're finding a lot more color in men's jewelry. Not only just steel and gold or basic, here again is the skullduggery, the edgy jewelry, but in cufflinks, and the bracelets. So we're seeing it in silver, we're seeing it in gold, we're seeing it in color. So men's jewelry continues to be very popular. Every year I try to pick one gemstone that I'm seeing a lot of. This year it's moonstones. I've been seeing moonstones everywhere. This one lady, she had an incredibly long, beautiful piece with rainbow moonstones. You're seeing different types, different colors. Last year it was opal. I saw opal everywhere. Before that it was the tourmaline, the rounded tourmaline cabochons that we saw everywhere. And one thing that I've noticed in looking through, because when I go to shows, I try to look at the gem counters too. Whatever you guys are selling, they're buying, and then we see the jewelry not too long after that. And we'll talk about that in a bit too. So these are the main design trends, but I'd like to also talk about what I call niche trends, and they're important because they're still a significant part of our market. First one is hanging by a thread, rough around the edges, which I sometimes call au naturel, exotic earwear, the unexpected, and then fantasy. Hanging by a thread. This is a way that jewelry designers are saving money by putting gemstones and gold and various other motifs on cords, silk cords, leather, cloth, you name it. So we have a number of designers who have, even this one here, this is by a very famous Italian company who has normally very heavy gold. She's actually also putting her designs, her gold designs on cords. So it's a way to reach a different audience. And this I call rough around the edges, for lack of a better name. This actually englobes a couple of categories. As you can see, we have fantastic mineral, what I call mineral gemstones that are incorporated into beautiful themes. We have the geodes. It's a really interesting category. But this is, again, an example of what is being sold in the gem marketplace that jewelry designers will pick up on. And I just want to give you a little bit of an anecdote about this category. Probably maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I met a sea captain turned jewelry designer. He was kind of a curmudgeon-y old guy, but he made a beautiful line of jewelry called Crystal Candy. And I asked him how he got started with this, because it was a very unusual line of jewelry. He manufactured in Thailand, and he told me one day he was doing his normal line of beautiful gemstone jewelry, and he was watching a cutter cut quartz. And there was a pile sitting next to the cutter where the pieces that were fractured and included, that were not quality enough to sell, they were just being tossed and thrown away. So he picked up a few samples, and the idea came to him that if he used these samples and took advantage of their inclusions and their defects, well, quote, quote, defects, that maybe he could make something out of it. And he created a line of crystal candy. But what he did, he put a ring around these defective pieces in sapphires, in diamonds, in tsavorite, and other types of jewelry, and he came out with a very popular line. So he took advantage of the problems in the piece, and he turned lemons into lemonade, and they became a very successful line. Now after that, we began seeing diamonds, inferior quality diamonds, sliced and turned into earrings, pendants, and whatever, usually surrounded by brilliants or even colored stones. But this, again, is an example of some interesting gem dealer who decided to slice the diamonds, tried to match the inclusions as best he could, and then the inclusions became part of the characteristic of the stone. So this in itself then became a feature, a selling feature, a marketing feature. That was followed by sliced rubies, sliced emeralds, some of which I know have been sold by people here in this room, and then, of course, the rough diamonds, the highly included diamonds. So it's an example, I think, of creativity, how people can use gemstones of all types to make really beautiful things. A subcategory of this, and this has been talked about a great deal in this Congress, are jewelry, or is jewelry that comes from a desire to be ethically responsible. And a number of designers, and we'll talk a little bit about it in the bridal section, a number of designers are using the ethical treatment and the sustainability as ways to, in fact, market their jewels. So that's another sort of subset of this category, the ecologically minded. This, of course, earrings, of course, are popular, but earrings are not only hanging down, earrings are now going up around the cuff, up around the ear, they're cuffing the ear, they're covering the ear in various ways. So I included this category because these are ear cuffs that actually go up the cuffs, up around the ear. Some are just really interesting. So there's, earrings come in all sizes, but the more exotic pieces I consider a niche category. This is an interesting category because, as in any domain, we find things that we don't really expect, and jewelry is no different. This is a Japanese company that makes jewelry, and this has been licensed by several US companies. It's a small diamond jewelry. It's a diamond that's on a very interesting spring, and when you walk, the diamond rotates and moves and jiggles. So the dancing diamond is a little bit unexpected, but very interesting and commercially doing very well. These two pieces, I was actually just at the AGS Conclave, and this is a New Orleans designer, these two pieces, who came up with the creation. I actually met him in Basel a few years ago. He was there working on the techniques because the Swiss developed a very interesting technique for this jewelry. It's called Revolve, and it's a perfect name because the center stones and the center diamond actually turn. It's battery operated, but it's an incredibly interesting mechanism. And he loaned me a piece, and I wore it, and sure enough, people really stare at you because the jewelry is actually moving, and he's done it with diamonds, he's done it with pearls, and he's done it with colored gemstones. So this is something out of the ordinary. Also, we have interchangeable jewelry. Here's a lady that has developed a ring that turns into a bracelet, which is interesting. Now this person, he's actually an Italian, and I saw this, I couldn't believe it. I saw it when I was in Bangkok last year and then again in Hong Kong. He actually won an award in Hong Kong. He has taken, he does Well, first of all, he does storytelling jewelry, and as Letitia talked about yesterday, the story is a big part of selling jewelry. And what he does, he takes various legends or historical events, and he creates jewelry around them. In this piece, you've got the jewelry actually moves and comes out, and little things hop out and look at you and jump up and down. And that's one thing. But what he did here, which was really remarkable, these pieces, it's called his Medici line, and these pieces are micro mosaics. You can't really see it that well. He's promised to send me better pictures. They were done by the person who does the micro mosaics in the Vatican. He only does work for the Vatican, but he liked this guy, and so he decided he would do it. This is with the pendant open, and this is with it open, closed, and then open. And it's a micro mosaic of the David, and it's really, really remarkable. It looks like a painting, but it's minuscule types of micro mosaics. So it's not something that you would really expect to see in a piece of jewelry. It's truly a work of art. The last category, well, second to the last category, is fantasy. And when Disney decided to invest $100 million promoting Tinkerbell, the most famous fairy in the world, fairy jewelry sort of took off, although it was very popular back in the Victorian age, because in those days, fairies were an socially acceptable form of pornography. You could have a nude fairy, but you couldn't have a nude woman. So then it was picked up later by the Art Nouveau period. So fairies have been very popular. Mermaids are also a popular niche. In fact, this mermaid right here is Mousson Atelier. Maybe Pavel would recognize it. These are made by Mousson Atelier. Van Cleef has done fairies for many years. And of course, the Tinkerbell fairies, the Disney line, are very, very interesting for children. Now, there is one category that I didn't really put here because it's a micro trend, but I think it's something that's going to be really more important in the future. And some companies, Richline in the United States, is now starting a line of smart jewelry watches made with gemstones and gold and you name it, and they'll do it. But they're becoming to make smart jewelry that's either tied to cell phones or jewelry that can be on its own. And I think this is probably one way to attract the millennial generation. So if I were going to put a 16th trend here, it would be smart jewelry. It's really a micro trend, but then we'll have to see what happens. So that's one thing to think about. And we're not really talking about bridal, because bridal is not really designer jewelry, but I just want to say a few words about it because the colored stone industry is really now implicated in bridal. I think you can sort of sum up the bridal industry or the trends in bridal. Basically, it's white gold, it's platinum. But beyond that, I think you can sum it up by the old adage, something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. So we're looking at the very new trends. We're looking at the vintage Art Deco trends. We're looking at the halo trends, which are very popular, borrowed from the past. As I said, vintage is the old, the modern. Also, this one here, Toby Pomeroy, he is a bridal manufacturer, and his main selling point is recycled gold and conflict diamonds. So again, he's playing on the need to have sustainability, to have ethical treatment, because if you're wearing a wedding ring, you want something on your finger that's going to be ethically sourced. So something old, something new, something borrowed. The halo look is borrowed from the past and is very, very popular. And then something blue. And as Letitia mentioned yesterday, we need things with stories. And what was the story that she told yesterday about the blue sapphire? Anybody remember? It was Princess Diana's ring, which is now Princess Kate's ring, or Kate Middleton's ring. So the blue sapphire is becoming very popular in bridal jewelry. And then not just blue sapphires, but pink sapphires and yellow sapphires. These actually are all Sri Lankan sapphires. And I actually saw the individual stones when I was walking around in Hong Kong. Actually, sapphires. Is Andre here? Is Andre here? No. Anyway, I was walking around and I saw a poster at the sapphires booth, and it looked like they were cut with diamond cuts. So of course, that piqued my interest. So I went in and I talked to him. Turns out These were the design of the diamond cut. It's called Asher Cut Princess. It's a modified Asher and Princess cut. Is applied to gemstones, is applied to sapphires. That's pretty creative, I thought. Why not? And they looked fantastic. So anyway, so much for bridal. And we have to talk about diamonds, and I'm running over time, so we'll go quickly. But diamonds have eternally been the embodiment of pure luxury. Why? Because De Beers has spent billions promoting the diamonds. So, you know, diamonds, they may be a girl's best friend, but, you know, they're still there. So these are some of the creative looks at diamonds, including colored diamonds. This interesting piece here is by TTF. It's a very, very interesting Chinese company who made a fabulous, for the Year of the Horse, who made a fabulous diamond horse necklace. I mean, the thing is humongous. But a lot of the creativity. And every year, someone comes up with an interesting thing. Last year, it was boots. They had these beautiful boots. Victoria's Secret does diamond bras. A Hong Kong company, Aaron Shum's company, Coronet Diamonds, came up with this $20 million guitar, which actually plays, and it's diamond encrusted. It won the Guinness World Book of Records for being the most important and the largest, or most valuable guitar in the world. And diamonds may be a girl's BFF, best friend forever, but clearly her other playmates are colored gemstones. So I'm going to run through very quickly just some of the colors, from the beautiful peridot greens to the emerald greens, and some of the creative pieces of jewelry that we see. Again, the sapphires and other beautiful blue stones. This I wanted to include. Paraiba actually almost got my Stone of the Year this year, but I made a whole separate page on Paraiba because we're seeing so much Paraiba, and it's such a beautiful stone. So I included a whole section on Paraiba. Again, your amethysts and your sapphires. So these are the yellows and the oranges. Look at this design. This is a French designer called Lydia Corté, and she does beautiful fire opal, well, she does jewelry of all kinds, but I was very impressed with her little scorpion. But it's not just one single color, it's a multitude of colors, and of course, we all love, okay, I'm getting the signal now, so the next will be the hook dragging me off the stage. So we'll go through these really very, very quickly. So of course, we not only have color, but we have the non-color and the whole color, so opposites attract. We'll just look very briefly at the black and whites with your onyxes and your diamonds. Now, very quickly, I couldn't not talk about jewelry without at least talking about some of the trends in pearls, and Baroque pearls seem to be very popular and continue to be very popular. So with that, we will conclude, and anyone who wants to look at the website, I have a number of fashion pieces and also a number of featured designers on the website that I consider quite interesting. So with that, I thank you very much.